Hey guys, welcome back to the rest day edition of the Detour, where we're going to unpack another epic stage of the Giro, stage 16. I'm joined by Olympic gold medalist and Olympic commentator Scotty McGrory. And Scotty, for the first time I think ever on the Detour, there's no iffy. He's a little bit unwell. And remember, when I was sick, he was calling me every name under the sun. I was soft, weak.
Yep.
And you got to be careful because what goes around comes around. But I think he's a bit crook. He assures me he doesn't have COVID. He wasn't in the Whittlesea area. He's up at Ngambia and he's going to have a bit of a rest today and charge his batteries so they can finish that week of the Giro.
Oh, hang on. So what I'm not up to date on is, so there are more cases around Whittlesea. Is that correct? In Victoria?
Yeah. We had a bit of an outbreak. So I think we're up to 9 cases at the moment. So we've got restrictions coming in, an hour ago. Masks inside, limit of people to 5 in your house, public gatherings of 30. Western Bulldogs are in isolation because one of their staff members went to High Point Shopping Centre, which is now deemed a close contact area or whatever the terminology is. So, it's starting to rage again. But, we wish Iffy well. But it is a bit like when we used to travel to the Tour de France with Iffy. There was always around this stage 14 to 16, he'd always get crook. It was the seafood pizza syndrome. And, it's happened on the ground. So,
yeah, but back then too, before, because, for those that don't know, John had a big health scare a few years back and esophageal cancer. So really, really serious situation that he got through. That's John. He just gets through everything and anything. He's been bulletproof throughout his life. But before that, he hit it pretty hard, mate, didn't he? At the Tour de France, he wined and dined and entertained and partied and drank as much as anyone, if not more than anyone. And one of his claims to fame, apart from the 4 times Australian road champion and multiple Herald Sun Tour wins, was that he reckons he's never, ever had a hangover. So he used to drink like a fish, doesn't drink as much anymore since he's been sick, but it never had a hangover, which is quite incredible. So,
Well,
anyway.
After the surgery he had for cancer, he lost a lot of weight. We're talking, 30-odd kilos. And a lot of people used to go up to him that hadn't seen him for a couple of years and say, geez, Iffy, that didn't know he was sick. Mate, you look incredible. What have you been doing? He'd just go, cancer. And they go, Oh, sorry, mate.
Not a recommended weight loss program. Not at all.
No. But no, he's doing well. Rest up, Iffy. We're thinking of you, mate. So let's get to the Giro, mate. Obviously, it was an epic stage. And I think Dan Lloyd tweeted, he said, that was the best stage I never saw. There was obviously issues with the broadcast. They were relying on the 4G. And if anyone knows 4G in the mountains in Italy, it's terrible. But what was your big takeaways from the epic stage?
Well, look, apart from, Bernal's strength and obviously, EF, really looking to light it up, they're all lucky. I think they're all just really lucky. I don't just think of, Bernal and those guys that were racing for the overall victory. And even at the end there, he took his rain jacket off, so he came across the line in the Maglia Rosa. I think that was a really, really special touch from the young man. Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a really good guy. He understands. And they did cop it. They copped a bit of flack from when they had Garner on the front when he was leading the race early on. So putting the Maglia Rosa on the front to chase down breakaways. And they copped it from some of the Italian press. But, this is showing some incredible respect for what they're really trying to do. It's not just who wears the jersey throughout the race. It's who wears the one in Milan on the last day. That's the important one because it's all about the overall victory. And I think he showed that sign of respect by ripping and it also showed his skills because he's on wet cobbles, wet pavers coming towards the end, bit of a sweeping bend and still trying to get this really tight fitting rain jacket off. So he showed some really good skills to be able to do that. So that was great. So all of that aside, his performance was amazing. Mate, I think of the sprinters, I think of the rouleurs, I think of these guys that, they're just trying to get through a stage. If they had to do the 3 big climbs and then, of course, the 3 super cold descents, that would have been brutal. That would have been a nasty, nasty day for everyone. And I think there would have been a lot of riders out of the race today, even though it was a rest day. They would have really struggled, hypothermia, all these sort of things. So I think everyone's really lucky that they made the right decision, part of the organisation, to cut it out. And in terms of the race, it didn't change anything, did it? We still had a spectacular finish and the best climber come away with the win.
Do you think Vegny, it shook him up a bit, the protest last year when it comes to rider safety, and he's sort of getting on the front foot rather than, hey, no, the race is going ahead as planned?
Yeah, well, I know that I received an email from the it just goes out as a communique from the Professional Riders Association, and they said that with the weather predicted a couple of days before the stage, they had already started the conversation with the race organisers, so they were aware of it. They knew that this could be an issue, and yeah, look, maybe the last year, because he was so negative, wasn't he, towards the riders making that protest. But this time they were right on the ball and did the right thing. It would still have been nasty for anyone in the gruppetto trying to come down that final descent, freezing their butts off. But still, it's only one effort, one frozen moment, and they all got through, which was great. So yeah, look, Venny maybe finally starting to learn and understand that you can be the race organizer and you put on your event, but the people that count perhaps the most are the participants within that. Let's all work together.
Well, here's obviously Simon Yates lost a bit of time, moved from 2nd to 5th on GC. Here's a short grab from Yatesy on the backstage pass last night.
Difficult stage, not what I was looking for, but hey, I did my best. I think the wind's maybe a bit far away now. I don't know. I have to check the GC properly, but podium's still well within reach. So keep the head up, keep the chin up, and we'll go from there.
You see Yatesy there, all the focus now is obviously the podium. The win, as he said, is going to be out of reach, and Bernal's that strong. But, I mean, going into the stage, Whitey was pretty confident that he'd be able to handle the conditions. I mean, is it one of those things that you don't know how they're going to react? You can train for it, you can prepare for it, but on the day, it's one of those, we'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. No one, look, Carthy put, obviously he was feeling super confident, and the stories came through that, when he woke up and looked out the window and saw that it was raining, he was rapt because he claims to love these conditions and doesn't struggle within them. So he was happy, with how cold and wet it was going to be. Put EF boys on the front. They're the ones that did all the damage. They blew all of the race and all of the, Simon was dropped by the EF guys driving it up the climb. But then in the end, he still did lose some time himself. So he came in a minute 19 behind. He couldn't stay with Bardet or Caruso. He came across the line with Ciccone. So, the guy that was perhaps the most confident, saying that he loved the conditions, still then did struggle a little bit, towards the top of that climb, in those conditions. So, hey, who knows? You've just got to, you might have your own history like he does. He's been good in the past in these cold, wet conditions, but yet it still didn't quite work out, absolutely in his favour. He hasn't really moved much anywhere on the GC, regardless of it. And the one that we all sort of were wondering about, with Bernal being the Colombian, etc., he smacked him, put them all away. So, yeah,
you were talking before about when he decided to show the pink jersey. I was stressing that he was going to bin it when he got to getting the hands off. As you said, they were so tight, and everyone said that the cobbles were slippery. I thought, could you imagine if he binned it and then he just teed off and, if the bloody Italians weren't so big on tradition, I wouldn't have done that, But it's all about, as I said, respect. Italians and Italian races in general, they are big on respect and tradition, more so than any other race, yeah?
Yeah. Look, I think so. I think, there's such a long history. And look, the Giro, it's only a couple of years younger than the Tour de France itself. But, yeah, absolutely. And it's had such a strong tradition within its racing, and the teams over the years and the riders, etc. And the Tifosi, the fans, I think the Italian fans are far more, well, we know they are far more passionate about their cycling than the French fans, of the Tour de France. But, and that just shows, the sleeves now on these rain jackets are so tight so that no air or water gets in up under the sleeves. But when he first grabbed the jacket and he got it off, then he went to put it around and stick it up the back of his jersey. One sleeve was hanging out. And there was just that moment where I thought, they could just go into the back wheel and just, get caught up and drag him down. So, he did show some great skills, the former mountain biker, so to handle those conditions. But as we said, mate, great sign of respect. Look, his time gap in the end wasn't extraordinary, and this has been each time that he's gone out and shown that he's the strongest rider, it's still only small amounts that he's been winning by. It was 27 seconds. Put an extra couple of seconds on there if he actually did drive it all the way to the line. So say that's 30 seconds faster than Bardet and Caruso. Well, Caruso in particular, because Bardet descended back to Caruso. He was behind a little bit further, and Romain Bardet hey, got to hand it to him as well. That was a nice little comeback ride from him. But he was third over the top of the climb, descended back to Caruso, and they're only 30 seconds or so down at the end. Ciccone, Carthy were, a minute 20. Almeida there as well, with Vlasov just over 2 minutes to 11 behind. But it's not like Bernal just went and rode 2 minutes off the front from everybody else. It was still only 30 seconds to Bardet and Caruso. But geez, how strong does he look? So really,
saying that's the best ride in 3 years. Best ride in 3 years I've seen for Bardet.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? It's good to see him back and having a real crack. There aren't enough top line French riders, and I don't know if he's thinking about the Tour de France or any of that kind of stuff. He probably isn't, but it's just good to have another Frenchman back in the mix.
Now, another rider we've been talking about a fair bit is obviously Remco Evenepoel. Here's his reaction after the finish, thanks to Velon.
What was my feeling? not too good if I lose around 20-25 minutes. So just an off day. We knew that this could happen. In the end, I've been training only 2 months towards the Giro, which is nothing and not enough to be 100% ready and race ready. But that's life. There's 1 more week to go. We did a really good stage with João today, so that's the most important for today. Tomorrow is rest day. We'll enjoy it together, take some good rest, and then try to make the best of it in the last week.
So you want to make it till the very end of the Giro? You want to stay here till the very end?
We never said that I was going to leave, so I never said that I was going to leave if I don't feel if I don't feel that I can finish. So I'm just going to end the Giro. Why not?
What do you think of that question if he was going to go or not? Was there any ever doubt, or do you think was there people questioning that he might just step off?
Oh, I think that's just a journalist saying, well, okay, if you were coming here supposedly to try and win and you're now so far down, you might just crack the saves and go home. But, it sounds like Remco, there's a couple of, comments and tweets. I saw one of his tweets or Insta posts where he was just laying on a bed saying, this is all I'm going to do till the end of tomorrow, on the rest day. So I think he's having a bit of fun with it as well and understands where he's at. He came in with real ambition. I think he understood that he hasn't trained probably enough, which is now evident. But he still wanted to try. He was still really having a go to try and see if he could actually get through. And they were just hopeful maybe he could. But we now know that that's not the case. He's 28 minutes down on the overall classification, and they'll then use this for training. And if he can get through to the end of it, and as long as with these weather conditions, as long as he just doesn't start to feel as if he's getting ill or having some sort of problems, then I think he will get through to Milan. And I tell you what, because of his physiology, he is an incredible athlete. Just wait and see what he does, in a month's time. At the end of this Giro, he will just go to another level, and much, much closer to what we started to see from him before he crashed last year in Lombardia. This will take him, through the stratosphere.
It poses a few points. If he is as good as what they're saying, this might be an historic Grand Tour, because it's like, remember that first Giro when they smashed him and he didn't get beaten for this extended period? It's like the early days when Winks got beaten and then went on that streak. And they always go back to, it did get beaten, 4 years ago or whatever. Who knows? It could be an historic Grand Tour, Scooter.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, we had Cadell. You had Cadell on the podcast a couple of times now, and his first Grand Tour was a Giro. He got the pink jersey, and then capitulated, on one of the last mountain stages. After that, he became a solid competitor and eventually went on to win the Tour de France. But I think you're right. Like he does show all of the signs. That's why they keep talking him up, because these days we do know. We just see the power data. We know the numbers. We can work out his power to weight ratio. Look at his age, the projection, his mindset. You can look at all those things far more than you could in the past, especially, the power data. And you can just see how good these riders are. And you can compare them, from riders from the past and other riders that are in the peloton now. And Remco's power data is just exceptional and better than anyone that we've seen before. So, he will be incredible. And as I say, mate, mark my words, watch out. I don't know what his program is for the rest of the season, but just look out. In 1 month from now, he will be at another level, and he'll be back winning races.
Well, what happens, that was the second point, with cyclist legs. They always talk about if you can get through a Grand Tour that week afterwards, so 5 or 6 days, you've got some of the best legs of your career.
Yeah, it's just the training effect. If you get through a Grand Tour and you absolutely grovel through the last week and just make time cut multiple times and come in the Gruppetto, okay, a week later you're probably still going to be pretty stuffed. But riders like Pogacar and Bernal and these guys, if you're coming through as one of the strongest riders, then if you go back to when the World Championships used to be, only a couple of weeks after the Tour de France, they were always the strongest riders at the Tour because they came out of the Tour de France with such good form, and they were super strong at the World Championships. And someone like Remco, because of his physiology, now that he's off GC, he can perhaps, if the team allows him, he might start working for Almeida, but he may be allowed to just try and get through these stages without going as deep as he would have normally, and that will help him get through the rest of this race and come through a little bit more comfortably than had he kept trying to get up there on GC. And so in a couple of weeks to a month, he'll just go to another level. The training effect that he's gaining from this is something you just can't replicate.
I've got a few comments that have come in. Matthew Bordigon says, "Hey boys, loving the podcast." Thanks, Matthew. CFC Hudson Valley. I'll be interested to see how well Bernal does on the longer mountain stages. The rate he's going, I mean,
you just win by more.
Exactly. He hasn't shown any signs that he's going to crack at all through this Giro. Damien Spike Games HQ. Hi, g'day. C Mallet 1. Remco at the Tour de France. What are the chances, Scooter?
Well, yeah, that's what they'll just look at. Look, it's a pretty quick turnaround between the Giro and the Tour. So, look, I think considering, he's coming back from such a nasty injury and it's taken him so long to get to this point, I think it's a bit risky to try and throw him in the Tour. It's probably asking a bit too much. I think it's more the Vuelta, but they'll perhaps focus on World Championships as well. I don't know what the plans are with Belgium, if they've selected a team for the Tokyo Olympic Games or anything like that. But, that's another one that he could start focusing on. But I doubt they'd put him in the Tour. But, hey, stranger things have happened. They'll just look at the data. They'll just keep looking at his training data and seeing how he's recovering. But I doubt that they'd throw him in the deep end. There's too much to lose. He's still such a young guy. He's got so many years ahead of him. He could focus on the Vuelta and perhaps come away with the win there.
And I think Matagas 1 answered it. Jonesy with his kit off. What are the chances? Probably on par. 0. It's time now for a word from our great mates from BikeExchange.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike. 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match. But not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. BikeExchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
Thanks again to our great mates at BikeExchange, and we'll be having Team BikeExchange head DS Matt White on in about 4 minutes' time, depending if the blackberries. It should be relatively cool there today, so I think we'll be fine. Now, Scooter, you picked up on a couple of interesting tweets overnight. We've got one here from Merlier.
Yeah, so Ed Hood just Tim Merlier went away, left the Giro, and then went and won the Limburg race. And Ed suggests that he thought that he had the tummy Dolomiti averse syndrome, which is what took him out of the race, which is, the Dolomites are coming, so I'm getting out of here syndrome. Now, normally, when you pull out of a race, for whatever reason, you're actually not allowed to go and race another event while that other race is still going on. Now, what Tim may have done is, and so there were some questions about that, like, well, hang on a minute, I didn't think he was allowed to race another race while this is on. He's gone and won it. But you can ask permission. So he may have asked permission of RCS to say that to whether he would be allowed, if they would allow him, and the UCI would allow him to go and start another event afterwards. So they may have gone through that process.
And there was another tweet you saw from John Pearce.
Yeah, which is a quote from Muhammad Ali. But yeah, if you ever dream of beating me, you had better wake up and apologise. And that's where Bernal sits at the moment, doesn't it? Like, if anyone thinks that they can get the better of Egan Bernal, then yeah, just give him a ring and apologise, because I don't think there's any chance of that.
Now, another big talking point was the descent of Izagirre and almost collecting the parked car. Is that one of the more amazing saves you've seen in cycling, Scooter?
Well, wet grass too. So he's gone off onto the grass, missed the first car, and almost clipped the blue van, missed that as well, and then back onto the road. That was as close as it gets, and I don't think there's any skill involved in that. I don't matter who it is. It's just luck whether you get out of it or not. Now, the only difference here is if he actually hit the van, it might have still helped him. Like, he could have, bounced off the van and come back onto the road if he didn't go sliding straight into the side of it. But if he grazed it, it might not have been such a bad thing, although the owner of the van would be pretty pissed off because you get a nasty scratch down the side of it.
Yeah, but you're parking on a D. You're parking on a D. I mean, it's Rule 101. Rule 101. What are you doing? If you get a bit of Juco scraped, I mean, that's on you, champ.
Yeah. Well, hey, Italian fans, mate, they probably love it. It'd be a badge of honour knowing that.
That's right.
Yeah, our van was hit by Izagirre. Yeah, that was extraordinary. That was a good save. Yeah. And I don't think there was any skill in it, as I say.
Now, right on time, Whitey. Very punctual, mate. Good to see. How you travelling, mate?
Good, mate. I up in the Dolomites there. Beautiful little location. Not sure exactly where I am, but went for a nice walk this morning, and busy day today. Just with planning and everything for the rest of this race, and obviously what we've got coming up. But yeah, it's good to have a little rest day before we hit our final block going into this last week and finishing off in Milan.
Now, Scooter and I have already sort of unpacked as much as we could from yesterday, and we were just saying with Yates here, it's one of those things where you hope for the best and you do all the planning and everyone feels good, but it's one of those things that, essentially it's out of your control with what happened. And as he said, we saw in the backstage pass, it's still, the fight on to make podium still definitely alive and well.
Yeah, it definitely is. And all these Grand Tours, it's like a roller coaster, and you've just got it's just as important managing the rough days as your good ones. And he had a bit of a rougher day yesterday in the cold, and we've just got to manage that. And well-deserved rest day for him today. And the good news is we've got some better weather coming for the next few days after that, mate.
Scooter?
How much stress with the riders, and we say with Simon, just trying to stay warm, trying to get enough clothing, having too much clothing on, trying to get it back off again. What was it like in the race, with the conditions as bad as they were?
Yeah, it's tricky. Look, I think the best move from the organisation was cancelling the stage. Well, not cancelling those two climbs. It was pretty grim, and it may. Well, at the end of the day, because the low cloud cover and because of the weather, the show must go on, but no one would have seen it anyway.
No.
So we had to get over. We had to get to our hotel. We had to go over one of those passes that was missed out on the stage yesterday, and it was 2 degrees and visibility of around about 5 meters. And there was during the day there was waves of snow that went through there. So it would definitely not have been safe yesterday to run that stage. And you're risking a lot. And even with the one descent we did, I remember I was directly behind Simon's group over the top of the last climb, and there wasn't much visibility for the first K or two of that descent. And the speed these guys are going, it was pretty hot. It was pretty scary for those guys. But it's racing. But I think the best organisation was. And I think the result would have been very similar anyway. Obviously, Bernal's shown he's the best climber here, and some guys would have maybe even lost even more time if they'd had to do 2 more climbs at that sort of altitude in those temperatures.
Were you surprised when EF got on in that climb and really started to light it up? Because obviously that was the point that Yatesy really started to struggle.
Yeah, I think that they were probably, or I hope they were thinking that they thought they had the ability to win the stage yesterday. It's great that they've got a positive outlook like that, but at the end of the day, I don't think Bernal, not too many people have come close to Bernal on any of those finishes. What it did is it just killed the chances of that breakaway staying away. I think that if Ineos had a hard chase, no one was helping them out, and if that break had arrived with 1 or 2 minutes more at the bottom of that final climb, which they would have if EF hadn't stepped in and helped them, then it basically all it did is it ruined the chance for the breakaway and presented Egan Bernal with another stage win on a platter.
Scooter?
Hey, with taking those 2 climbs out, I don't think there's any rider, anyone that had real ambition for the stage. I don't think anyone would have been disappointed with, with not doing those climbs with the weather conditions. But you also got to think about, not that the race organizer, I guess, have to, but I'm always thinking about everybody else in the race as well. That would have been horrendous for the sprinters, for the rouleurs, anybody else down in the peloton. The danger of the GC guys trying to race over 3 climbs like that with those incredibly cold descents would have been really dangerous, I think. But then for everyone else, that's going to take a lot longer to get to the finish. I think we'd have lost a lot of riders yesterday, and potentially from crashes as well.
Yeah, and for the vast majority of that field, those guys aren't even racing; they're just trying to survive. And when you're trying to survive, it didn't change the end result. It didn't change the end result. And for 120 guys yesterday, it was about getting into those climbs and getting to the finish and not catching the cold and staying safe. So those extra 2 climbs wouldn't have changed anything except made it more dangerous for those guys. And we've already seen a lot of guys go home with crashes and with illnesses, and that would have only multiplied the situation, especially now in the last week when people's immune systems are on the limit.
Well, talking of the last week, I can bring up a screen. You just bear with me, where we can have a quick look at the profiles just to give people a bit of an insight as to what's to come. So this is obviously stage 17. What are you expecting out of this one? We've got a couple of Cat 1s at the final there.
Yeah, so it's another one of the stages that we've had a look at, and I expect a big breakaway to go down the road in that first hour of racing, and then depending on the combination of who goes and how motivated Ineos are at bringing it back, because by the looks of it, that if they want to bring it back for Bernal to win another stage, well, then the break is probably a bit doomed. If they're just happy to have an easier day and just control the break, leave it out there at a time gap that maybe other teams may be interested in bringing it back for their leader, then the break could get caught. But I think that final climb is more brutal than yesterday's climb. It is unbelievably steep, and in the last week of a Grand Tour, when you've got to climb with those sort of gradients at the end of a stage, I think you'll see as bigger gaps, if not bigger, than the Zoncolan, because that climb in the final is a lot harder than the Zoncolan. We went on the soft side of the Zoncolan this year. The normal side of the Zoncolan, no. But the Zoncolan that we saw 2 days ago, where there was only splits in the last 2.5 kilometers, similar gradients and difficulty to that. So you're going to see fireworks, and whether that's fireworks for whoever's going to win out of the breakaway, or again with the GC guys and that final shuffling of who ends up finishing on the podium. But it's going to be a great day to watch. But I do see a big break going, or a decent sized break going in that first 50k, because it's downhill, it's fast. Everyone's got good legs when they start downhill, and you will see a lot of boys and a lot of teams jumping around, because at the end of the day, there's still a lot of teams who haven't won a stage, or who haven't got anybody in the top 5 who can realistically arrive on the podium.
Knowing how hard that stage is, do you have to really monitor what the riders do on the rest day?
Yeah, it is very much an individual thing. I think you'd probably be more scared with certain guys if you had a climb in that first hour of racing, and because for most people on the wheels is not that bad. If you're someone who comes out of a rest day a bit a bit. Some people do retain a bit of fluid on a rest day, but unless you were trying to make that breakaway, by the time you actually do get to the Category 1 climb, you've got a couple of hours of racing in the legs, and you would have sweated it out. You'll feel okay. It's when you have a Cat 1 or a Cat 2 in the first 20 or 30K that some people can really be affected by that, whatever they've done on the rest day. But within our 8 guys, they're doing a pretty big variety of rides today. Some guys are doing very, very little on the home trainer. Some guys are going for a 2-hour ride. Some guys are doing with a 2-hour ride with a 15, 20-minute climb when they want to have a sweat. So it's a very much an individual process they go through today.
What was your routine back in the day on the rest days, Whitey?
All depended on what the next day was. I think if I looked at that profile, I would have had a pretty cruisy day. Where I didn't like is if I had to go up a categorized climb within the first hour, that would not have been good. I would have done a lot more, and whether it was a lot, have a good sweat on a climb, do a 15, 20-minute climb, or come back after the ride and do a half hour on the home trainer, something like that. But if I saw that profile tomorrow, wouldn't faze me so much, because you're going to be able to get through even on the wheels that first 30 minutes, and by the time you really have to go, unless your role was to make the move. If your role was to make the move, you probably do a bit of a pre-start tomorrow, jump on the home trainer and have a sweat before you even actually get to kilometre 0.
That's actually something I was going to ask you about, was the pre-start, because a lot of the listeners may not understand what that is. But so either before or after breakfast, just jump on the rollers or the home trainer and just I think it used to be 20 minutes or so, just get the legs going, get a bit of the sweat going. And which is great. Like on training days, I used to do that myself. I do the pre-starts in heavy training weeks, so you're really ready for the session when you get out onto the road. So you still do that sometimes on these stages?
Yeah, definitely. Again, very individualised. Some guys, Simon Yates will just have an extra coffee, and other guys will get on there and have a really good sweat. Now, like you said before, Scott, some guys do that at the hotel, and some guys will do that 30, 40 minutes before the race, and then get off, change, put some fresh clothes on, and then head off to kilometre 0.
It's interesting. Hey, with those 2 climbs at the end there, if you're thinking about Bernal in the situation where he is now, so he's 224 up on Caruso with Carthy back at 340.
Yeah,
it's a pretty comfortable lead for him. Do you think would you be suggesting, but if you were his DS, to try and maybe get some more time on a finish like that, to just create a more of a buffer going into the last couple of stages, just to be a little bit more relaxed? Not so much thinking about the time trial, because I think that buffer's still enough for the time trial, but hey, it'd be nice to, the bigger the gaps you can have, the better, eh?
Yeah, well, I think the big question they will be asking is, do we want to spend a lot more? And you've got to think, what's the day after? The day after is a 230-kilometre flat stage, which they probably will get away without having to ride 1 metre. So if that will be controlled, it'll probably be a breakaway, because there's not many sprint teams or sprinters left. But regardless, that will be a day off for Ineos. So, if Egan's confident, if Egan wants to really stick the knife into the other GC guys, then the breakaway might be doomed. And all they'll have to do there is put Garner and a couple of other big guys to control that break as soon as it does go, regardless of the size. And if they really amped it up on the first climb of the day and had it within a minute or 2 on the last climb, that climb is that hard that he could go from 2 or 3 kilometres out and get across a decent sized group. But there'll be a lot of teams who'll put them under the pressure at the start, and it depends on their mindset and how keen they are to win one more stage, or if they're happy just to go, well, let's just cruise, let's just mark our rivals on the final climb like we did on the Zonklan, give the stage away to the opportunist, and then we hit it hard again on the last 2-day block.
So as you said, stage 18 is a flat stage, but geez, you've got a couple of filthy ones coming up. Stage 19, what are you expecting on this one?
Well, I've got some ideas, but it's sort of until you see the final wash up of where your rider is on GC, whether you're riding aggressively or whether you're riding conservative. And after stage 17, there might be bigger gaps. We might move back up into second place. We might have moved back down a spot to 7th. Who knows? But once you see the wash up from that, then you sort of shape your tactics. But regardless, we want to move up, and I think it's very reasonable for us to arrive on the podium. And we need to take some time on some guys going into that last time trial as well. We want a buffer on Vlasov, and we want a little bit of a buffer on Caruso. So we've got some time to peg back, and that process will start in 48 hours anyway, mate.
And then finally, you look at stage 20. I mean, even if there's minutes involved, I mean, geez, there could be some huge time deficits being made and lost on this stage.
Yeah, mate. Their stages, a stage like that, there's nothing in the Tour de France that even resembles something like that. They're bonkers. Those stages are bonkers. And again, you've got 130 riders who are just looking to make the time cut. You've got about 20 blokes who are there to help their teammates for half the stage, and you've got about 15 blokes racing.
Yeah.
And they're so brutal that sometimes they do become quite negative, because I can't remember the meters off the top of my head of that one, but it's a 4,200
meters of climbing.
Yeah, and 4,200 meters of climbing, but it's all in the last 80k.
Yeah.
So it's incredible. You know, there's probably, I don't know the exact statistics, but there probably isn't one day at the Tour de France with 4,200 meters of climbing in a total stage, let alone in the last 90 kilometers. So it's just incredibly brutal. But some people are already in survival mode by the time we get to there, and you know, you've got a handful of guys who are jostling out for different prizes, whether it's teams class or the KOM jersey or supporting your leader. But very few people can win that stage realistically.
Yeah.
Hey, DJ, can you just scroll back to the previous
sure, mate.
Mountain
this
stage? That one there, yes. No,
this one.
Next, yeah, that one. Keep
this
down
one.
a bit, down.
Down.
So
this one.
Stage 19. That's it. Yes,
that's it. Yeah.
You see the first climb there. That's the Motorone. Cable car crash a couple of days ago. 14 people
on the weekend
died. Yeah,
oh, really?
Cable car that goes up, from the town of Stresa at the bottom, which is on Lake Maggiore, which is where I used to live just nearby. Beautiful town, beautiful region. And they have this big cable car that goes from Stresa up to Motorone, and 14 people died. The actual cable car came down and crashed. Terrible.
Yeah. Very sad story. There was 10 adults, and I think it's four children as well. So it's the cable car was when I don't know the height that it fell off, but it was half the size by the time it hit the ground.
Yeah,
a tragic story.
Yeah. That's terrible. So so that'll be a bit of a challenging stage, actually. You know, going past a scene like that as well for the organisation as well, being sensitive to the people that have the families and friends of those that perished.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if there's a stage that probably is realistically one for the breakaway, I think that's the one, because it's a not as hard a final as Thursday, as there's the next road stage, and I think the last road stage as well is that brutal. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's the day that maybe one break can stick on that day.
Just back on yesterday's stage, who surprised you the most, Whitey, of all the GC guys?
I think Caruso, actually. I think Caruso's is always been very solid. Always played a role as a super domestique. You know, you're talking about a bloke who finished in the top 10 in the Tour de France last year, helping out Landa. He very rarely has a bad day, but I also very rarely see him have super days. Now, that's because a lot of the time that he's working for other people. He's in a situation that he's never been in before, leading a team in the Grand Tour. So we'll see how he handles the pressure of trying to get the job done from now till Sunday. But that was a very impressive ride from him. Bardet, we've seen, Bardet has podiumed the Tour de France before. No surprise there, but that was certainly the best ride we've seen of him. And like we were talking a couple of days ago, I think there's some guys are struggling with such varied temperature differences, and some guys relish it. And those two are a big surprise. And the rest, we had a day that we didn't expect to be as bad. Vlasov as well. I know he had an incident with a rain jacket at the bottom, but all the top 10 guys were around where you would expect them to be.
Now, we obviously, as viewers, we were, bit annoyed because the pictures weren't coming through. How does that actually affect you in the team car? Because I know from back in the day, that's how you'd get a lot of information too, seeing what was happening in the race. Did that no pictures affect how you were able to see what was going on?
It didn't actually, Jonesy, because it had the opposite effect. Because it was so selective, I was directly behind the action, so I could see Simon nearly at all times. I could see the other group. So because by the time we got to the uncategorized climb before the last climb, there was only 25 riders. So because we were car 2, we were there right behind the action. So I could see a lot yesterday, probably more than I would on most days because we were so close to the action because the bunch was so reduced.
Yep. And what's the region like you're staying in? It looks like a pretty good hotel. What was on the menu last time, mate?
Sort of that heavy, the dumplings, Dolomite dumplings.
Yeah, a lot of sort of white sauce, bit rich.
Oh, just heavy sort of food there. Heavy sort of food. Might even bypass lunch or have a light lunch today.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a night go by where I haven't rolled to bed with full guts. There've been some late dinners, and I said it's much easier to go for a run than say no to Italian cuisine. And last night was another night that certainly didn't disappoint.
Good stuff,
hey, what's it like for the staff, mechanics on yours on a race like this? It's been so much rain, a lot of hard work for all the staff behind the scenes. You get to a rest day, they've been pretty hammered as well. So what do they get to do today, and how hard has it been for them?
Yeah, it's not too much of a rest day for those guys. The boys only left for a wide ride in the last 10 minutes, so they had a bit of a sleep in. Some of them had control this morning. That went down like a lead sinker when they got a knock on their door at 7:30 this morning when they thought they'd get a bit of a sleep in. So a couple of those guys had control. Late breakfast, rolled out of the hotel 11:15. They'll be back 1:15, and then the lunch, and then the mechanics will spend all afternoon cleaning their bikes, making sure the equipment's ready, and getting reset for the last little push. But mechanics will be finished a bit earlier. Obviously, we don't usually get to the hotel till 7. They'll be working probably till about 6 o'clock, 6:30 at night, and then we'll have a bit of a get together out in the bus there. And after the massage therapist have treated the boys after lunch today, and have a bit of a chat between the staff, and have a little bit earlier dinner, and earlier chance to hit the sack a little bit earlier on a rest day. Then we start again.
Is there any of the riders that like I didn't mind every now and then just change the conversation rather than just be with your roommate or other riders? I'd go down, maybe take a beer down to the mechanics and just give them a beer and sit down and just talk about bikes or bike tech or just have a different conversation. Any of the guys in the Giro amongst your boys that are like that go down and have a chat to get out of their little bubble?
Yeah, they do. I don't think so much they go in and have a chat maybe with the mechanics, but there's a couple of our guys they'll get out of the hotel, and because it depends on where you are and the weather, but come out, go take a book and go walk down to the park. We're in a beautiful, beautiful part of Italy here, in this mountain range we're in, and it's just to get out of the hotel because we are here 2 nights. It's a nice hotel, like a sort of a ski chalet. But some of the boys do like to get out and go for a walk and just stretch the legs. And unfortunately, you can't go into a shop and have an ice cream or go have a look around like you normally would. But they can go down. There'll be a couple of guys who will go for a walk after lunch and just break up the monotony of sitting in a hotel room.
Is Chicho the mechanic there? He's always up a long chat.
Especially with you, Dan. Especially with you.
4 years.
Como está?
He goes, hey, Dad. I just go, Chicho. 4 years. That's all he said.
End of story.
Dad. That was it. And I think it was a dinner one night. Someone said, "Oh, you ever had a chat to Chicho?" And I was like, "No, actually, I've only had to just said his name." And then some of the other mechanics, like Andre, he used to go on these 30K runs. He'd literally get lost sometimes.
No, nothing's changed there either, Dan. No, he would have done a good 15 to 20K run this morning.
Did he bring any of that bison vodka over from Poland?
No, he did not. He did not bring any. He hasn't been. I think due to COVID, he hasn't been back home for a little while.
That's a shame.
But, it is a shame. It is a shame. But no, or most of our staff get out and they'll get out and go for a run or a walk, and because it is not as hectic as a normal day, because we're not transferring hotels, and it's nice to spend 2 days at a hotel. You only do it 2 times in the whole race, and you get a little bit more time to do. And depending on what your role is, you've got a little bit more time to do some extra things, or catch up with your family, or get some work done.
Or jump on a podcast.
Are you allowed to mingle with? Well, I say mingle, but are you allowed to talk to other riders or DSs or other staff members from other teams, or is that part of the COVID protocol? You're not allowed to.
Yeah. Look, like always, if you both got masks on and you stay 2 meters apart and preferably outside, it's okay. But in general, since COVID has come around, it's not as social as it usually is. A lot of us have got friends on other teams, and if they're staying close, it was always nice to go and catch up with someone different or a mate from another team. But that's not possible really at the moment. If we're staying here with 1 or 2 teams, and if that person was at the hotel, it's okay in the protocol if you both got masks and you go sit outside, but you sort of don't go looking for to hang out with other people from other teams.
It's another little mental, stress to have to deal with, isn't it? If that's part of your routine, if you're a talkative person, you want to get away from the stresses of the race. It's just another little thing that you don't get to do that you have to deal with.
Yeah, you just got to find another outlet, or find something else that keeps you stimulated, or on the way keeps you quiet. And sometimes a bit of own time is good for people, and sometimes they like to hang out with others. And just finding the balance that works for you.
Great Divides asked the question: how's Schultze and Cam going?
Good. Schultze had a pretty tough day yesterday. And Cam's good, man. He's over his sickness, and obviously the roles we've got for Cam, they finished when the climb started. But they're both in a good way. We've got 8 healthy riders now, which is always when you look at the decimation to other teams. I think with Lotto Sedala got 2 riders left for the rest of the week, and other teams are pretty depleted. We're going to throw the kitchen sink at the stages that are left, so we're in a good way.
Is Cam with that illness, and now you say he's feeling better, but with the Olympics in mind, having been named in the team for that, do you see any challenges around him being sick, and then looking down towards the Olympics? Will it affect him anyway? I think there was a question a couple of days ago about that actually. Will it affect Cam for the Olympic Games, and what is his program after this?
Yeah, so the number one thing would be the Olympics will still have to go ahead. The number 2 thing is if Cam's getting through, if he's recovered during a Grand Tour and going to finish the Giro, which he will, I don't see any issues at all with Cam's sickness. It was a basic sickness, but a basic sickness when you're trying to race a Grand Tour can be a bit complicated. And if your body's been strong enough to recover during the race, I definitely don't see any issues. The Olympics are not that close, realistically. And as far as race schedules, Cam won't race with us again until after the Olympics. So he gets plenty of time to recover from the Giro, and then he's heading back to Australia to do his final track preparation in Brisbane.
Well, you raise a good point with the Olympics. I was reading something today that in Japan, they've got a 98% mask uptake with the population, yet cases have just gone through the roof at the moment. So, geez, the next, 8 weeks until the Games is going to be really interesting, even if they've got strict protocol.
But they have to go ahead, Dan. They have to go ahead. I'm commentating them, and I definitely want to do that.
That's right. Well, then you see the skateboarders, the Aussie skateboarders have all caught COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's actually a challenge today Whitey, the 3 skateboarders, I think it was, they now, because they got COVID, I bumped into Miles Stewart today, who's the CEO of Triathlon Australia, and he was telling me the story that 3 of them that caught COVID in the States, which means that they can't do their final qualifying event, which means they will not be going to the Games because they will not now qualify. So that's, people listening might know that that's not correct or not, I'm not sure, but that's what I was told today. So that's how serious that case is, that they've actually now missed, or they're going to miss their qualifying event to get into the Games. So that's a real bummer.
Because, I suppose those guys, their qualifying events were probably scheduled for last year, and they were called off because of COVID last year as well.
Yeah. Anyway, all right, mate.
Oh, look, if the Olympics doesn't go ahead, I think the IOC will come out looking a very different organisation that it will. I think financially, there's a lot of money to be lost if the games don't go ahead. Both for the Japanese, who've obviously invested billions of dollars in preparing for the games, and the IOC, it's that's where they make their money every 4 years. And if the games were called off, it would be a disaster for them as an organisation.
Yeah,
so they'll be doing everything they can to make sure it's on.
Yeah, that's right. 100%. Interesting times. All right, mate. Well, enjoy the rest of your rest day. Say good day to the boys. Is Chicho on the race?
He is, mate. He is. I can pass on the.
Pass on the. Ciao. Tell him to say good day, mate. Well, look after yourself. We'll check in again tomorrow, mate.
Yeah, no worries, guys. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks, Whitey.
Cheers, mate.
Head DS for Team BikeExchange, Matt White. Some great insights there. And another thing that we noticed on the race that I don't reckon I've seen before, Scooter, was George Bennett attached to the feed bag. What was happening there?
Well, you should be able to get some info out of George. You're a good mate of his, but and he can see underneath the jersey as well his stomach. He does look fairly heavily pregnant there, but yeah, and it looks like he was carrying that bag all the way down the descent as well, flapping away. Obviously, I don't know, too cold to take it off. I don't know what the situation was, and of course, you can't just throw them away. You've got to wrap it up and stick it under your jersey or something. But it doesn't look like there's much room because he had. I don't know. There was something else shoved under there as well. It looked like he was having a really nasty day, and the care factor was pretty low. Yeah,
fair enough. Anything you want to add before we wrap things up, mate?
Well, just Whitey talking about Caruso as his sort of surprise. Look, 33-year-old Italian. He's been good. He was 10th at the Tour de France last year, but his sort of best results before that was he was second at Torino Adriatico, second at Tour de Suisse. So good GC results, without being, the winner of these events. So, but, second in those sorts of races shows, his ability, and 10th at the Tour. But if he was to stay in the position he's in now, second on GC at the Giro for an Italian at 33, that's an extraordinary performance from him. So, and coming in to ride for Mikel Landa, who's no longer there. So, it's been an exceptional performance by Caruso.
I've got a couple more comments I'll get through before we wrap things up. Mataga says, get Merckx and Caleb on a panel to discuss Merlier's win, given that they had the big biffa about disrespecting the jersey. Free Ranger says, considering Bernal's current form, will Ineos DS be tempted to switch from G and Richie to Egan for the Tour de France?
We've kind of touched on this a couple of times, haven't we? With the short turnaround, no one's been able to do that since '98. Pantani, winning both Giro and the Tour. Times have changed dramatically since that period. So, look, I think with Ineos, they have a plan, don't they? They really work towards it. And this is the race that Bernal was trying to win as his first Grand Tour before he ended up having to go on to the Tour de France and then won that instead. So, look, I think this is the goal for him for this year. And Geraint still has a bit of an axe to grind, doesn't he? He wants to get another win. So, I think they're all in for G, give him another shot at it. And then, look, Bernal's still young. He does look like, when he won it last time, the Tour de France, it looked like he's going to be the dominant force for the next number of years. They need him to be, really on the money to make sure that they can beat Pogačar and in the future as well, because he's going to be around for another decade as well. So,
so you think Bernal will go on to Tour of Spain, obviously, and try and do the double this year? Or
I think so. I think that's what their plan will try to be. And look, that way they've got a better chance of potentially winning all 3 Grand Tours. If G comes away with the Tour win, who knows? And Bernal gets the Vuelta, all of a sudden they've won all 3. Maybe that is their ultimate goal, and they don't want to sidetrack themselves. Chasing something else. We don't know. Like they might take Bernal to the Tour now because he's got great form. Who knows? But there's no indication that that's going to be the case.
Another question. Damon Spike Games HQ says, think Bernal is equal to Pogačar now? That is the question.
It is. We won't know until they go head to head. But look, you haven't got the absolute favourites for the Tour aren't here at the Giro. So Bernal is the best rider here, but he's not beating the other best riders in the world. So we don't know until they go head to head. Pogacar is still going to be a better time trialer than Bernal. Not that Egan's a terrible time trialer, but we just know how good Pogacar is, and it's how he won the Tour last year. So everyone's going to be waiting for it. That's for sure. And if you're a race organizer, you'd be keen for, say, next year to have all of those guys in top form focusing on the Tour de France. Roglic, Pogacar, Bernal, maybe it's Thomas again, who knows. But I'd also like to see Froome, put in a reasonable performance and be competitive at the Tour. I don't think it'll happen, but I'd really like to see Chris, come back and at least be sort of top 4, top 5, and be competitive again. I think, he deserves it for his Palmares. What he's been able to achieve in this sport's been incredible. So it'd be nice for him to go out on a high.
For sure. Ian Thomas has commented on with Matt about removing those stages. Shame to hear him so flat after yesterday's result, after him being so positive before. I think that's pretty normal, particularly with a Grand Tour, when you put so much preparation, so much focus into, every stage. And with GC, it's not like the early days where, you're going for stages and you could have those stages where you could switch off. And mentally, they were fantastic. Like, if it was a mountain stage, it's like, we'll try and get in the break. If we don't get in the break, just kick back. And that's when you could really have some fun. When you GC, every single minute is just like almost on edge and focused. And then when stages like that, as we said earlier, you can't predict, I mean, it is flattening, and I suppose it's true. We were all hoping that he'd be up there and, holding on to sort of second place. But I think, as he said, the realistic goals now is obviously not going for the win. It's going for podium. And given how well Bernal's going, I mean, geez, I don't think anyone in modern cycling at the moment would be up there trying to topple him unless you're Pogacar on good form or you're Roglic's or whatever. But as you said at the Giro, he's just that much better than everyone else. I think, focus is all on the podium.
And Whitey, I think Whitey sounded positive. But he definitely a bit flat, and it's on this day. So it's the rest day. Everything's about relaxing. I think that probably brings down his feeling as well, because he knows he doesn't have to get up and about again until tomorrow. But he's positive, saying he wants to throw everything at these next few days. That's right. And that's not just maybe Simon trying to get back on the podium, but it's also having a presence in these breaks, trying to get a stage win. So they've got a full contingent of riders. We'll wait and see what happens. Look, he's still got Neve and you've got some Tangert. You've still got some decent riders there that have climbed okay, that might be able to get themselves into a break and pick up a stage win. But I think he's still sounded positive, even if he was a bit flat.
Yep. And final one, Wombat Breath. Appreciate all the insights. Cheers, gents. Good on you, mate. It's been a big show. Thanks for stepping in, Scotty. There's no Iffy tonight, but I think we've done a good effort. I'll tell Iffy, it's like the episode of The Simpsons. If you don't turn up Friday, don't turn up Monday. He goes, Friday weekend. No, we want him back. So heal up, Iffy. I hope you're doing well. And we'll be back again tomorrow night, a little bit later. So we'll be about 7:30, 7:45 Australian Eastern Standard Time. So, and we'll check in with Whitey. We'll have another special guest. And there'll be plenty more to unpack because we've got a pretty big last week of the Giro. And as we saw in some of those stage profiles, particularly that stage 20, it's going to be gnarly. And as we always say, get involved with the show, youtube.com/the Detour Podcast. Make sure you likes, tell your mates, turn on notifications. But we appreciate all the support. You guys are absolute legends, and we'll see you again tomorrow night. Cheers.
Cheers.